my name is Cali Chappell, and thanks for watching this video, Introduction to Counterplans, Part 2, Neg Basics. This video is part of a larger series of video that I'm doing to teach novices how to do policy debate. That's the Go Fight Win and Novice Debate series. So my name is Cali Chappell. I'm a debater for the University of Michigan, and in high school I debated for Traverse City Central. I'm a second negative first affirmative speaker, and fun fact about me is that process counterplans are my favorite argument ever. Alright, so how do you make the most out of these videos? First, you should take notes, and second, you should rewatch bits that you need re-explained. Counterplans in particular, especially as we talk about more complicated topics in this video, especially, can get very confusing. So it's understandable if you need to go back and rewatch, and always feel free to reach out to your varsity debaters or your coach, or even asking me questions in the comments. I'm more than happy to respond to anything that you need to know. Hopefully we'll have worksheets and or supplemental materials that will go along with this video, so check out the video description to see if I posted those. Next, you don't need to memorize at all. What we want you to be is at least familiar with the terms in this video. So when I talk about a PIC, when I talk about an international actor counterplan, when I talk about utopian fiat in the future after watching this video, you should be like, yeah, I know what those terms mean. I'm familiar with that, right? It's a building process. And finally, your coach may like things differently, or you may just like to debate in a different style. That's totally okay. This is just one starting point and it's not an end point. So let's do Throwback Thursday. So part one of this was the basics. So I had the introduction to the counterplan, understanding the parts of the counterplan. That would be the plan, text, solvency, and the net benefit, as well as understanding counterplan competition and kind of a vague idea of what the permutation is. If you have any questions about the topics that I just discussed or what you see on the screen, then you should definitely go back and rewatch that video, because I'm going to assume that you have those ideas pretty down pat as we progress in this part 2 video, okay? Alright, so first let's talk about the types of counterplans. So there are three general categories of counterplans that I'm going to talk about. And here I'm going to use the we should go to McDonald's plan as the example to kind of conceptualize what these counterplans mean in more literal terms, so you can understand them better as we talk about them in more abstract terms as they relate to the 1AC. Alright, so the first of the types of counterplans is the advantage counterplan. So they solve the impacts of the plan without doing the plan. They have nothing to do with the plan. It's just an alternative way to solve. So a lot of the counterplans that I was giving examples for in more basic means were advantage counterplans. In the previous video, for example, as we talked about, I want to go to McDonald's because I'm hungry, and then the other counterplan was, no, I should have some novices go get me pizza because I don't have to leave. That was an example of an advantage counterplan. Now, what is not an advantage counterplan? When I talked about the States counterplan, the Japan counterplan, the private sector counterplan, those are not, because they actually do the plan. They just change the actor. So here's some examples of advantage counterplans. So an example would be like, instead of going to McDonald's, we should drive to Taco Bell. And the net benefit is that we like fake Mexican food better. I'm not saying Taco Bell is like actually Mexican food. Alright, here's another example. Fertilizing the ocean with iron would solve global warming, or decreasing taxes would solve the economy, okay? So these are other things that are not the plan that solve advantages such as global warming or the economy. So how is it mutually exclusive, right? So I talk about the two parts that a counterplan has to be is it has to be net beneficial and it has to be mutually exclusive. Well, we can understand how these other counterplans could be net beneficial. They could just be a better way of solving the advantage that the plan is trying to solve for. But how can you prove that the counterplan and the plan can't happen at the same time, e.g. that they're mutually exclusive? Well, usually what we do is the plan will link to a DA that the counterplan doesn't. Sorry, I should say counterplan. So for example, the politics DA, usually it'll be like the plan links to the politics DA, but the counterplan is not. Like the counterplan is politically popular. Or something like that. Or what's another good example? The spending trade-off DA. Like fertilizing, for example, decreasing taxes would solve the economy. If we did, like, for example, the aquaculture app, one of the advantages is the economy. So the trade-off DA says that if we spend on NOAA, then it trades off with NASA. But here, if we have a counterplan that just decreases taxes, that doesn't have anything to do with NOAA, so that won't trade off spending with NOAA like it does with the plan. Alright, so the next part is the plan-inclusive counterplan. So that's counterplans where the counterplan does some but not all of the plan. So usually the net benefit is based off the part of the plan that you cut out. So a plan-inclusive counterplan, or a PIC, a PIC, is shown in this diagram right here. So here's the plan, it's a big thing, and then the pick is just a little bit of it, right? So it does some, but not all of the plan, okay? So the net benefit is usually based off the part of the plan you cut out. So you can think about this white part, the part of the plan that's not encompassed by the pick, as the part that gets you your link for the disad. Sometimes it's considered cheating because it steals most of the plan. But sometimes cheating is okay in debate. That's what's really cool about debate, is we get to make up the rules in the debate. So why is it okay? Well, because you get to make up the rules and an argument using theory arguments. So topicality is an example of a theory argument. Conditionality is an example of a theory argument. We'll have plenty more lectures detailing theory arguments coming up. But what I think you should understand from this is that plan-inclusive counterplans can sometimes be considered cheating. So here are some examples of plan-inclusive counterplans. So, we should go to McDonald's, but we should ride bikes instead of driving because they're more environmentally friendly. And the net benefit is saving the environment solves global warming. So, here we go. So, here's the plan, right? We should go to McDonald's. And then the pick is we should go to McDonald's, right? So, it still encompasses all parts of going to McDonald's, but instead of driving, then we should ride bikes. So here's the pick, riding bikes and going to McDonald's. Here's the plan. The white part that's not encompassed by the pick would be the part of going to McDonald's that involves driving. See, so like that's the part that links, because driving is bad for the environment, so it collapses the environment, right? And so that's the net benefit to the counterplan, that we save the environment by taking bikes. So here's another example. What about we should do aquaculture everywhere except Alaska, where it would kill Arctic cod, which kills ocean biodiversity. So here the plan is the regular aquaculture app with all 50 states. Here's the pick where aquaculture happens everywhere but Alaska, right? So here's all 49 states in here, and then here's the part where just the plan is just Alaska. And see, that's the part where the link comes from, right? Because doing it in Alaska would kill Arctic cod, which kills ocean biodiversity. So, how are picks mutually exclusive? Well, they're plan minus. So remember, we had two different definitions of things being mutually exclusive. Either they link to a disad that the plan linked to a disad that the counterplan didn't, or that they physically could not be done at the exact same time. So, picks are mutually exclusive because they can't be done physically at the same time as the plan, because you can't do all the plan and also not all the plan at the same time. You can only do all the plan plus something, but you can't do all the plan minus some of itself. So for example, this is kind of a gruesome example that I just thought of, but like if you have all of yourself and then you cut off your arm, you can't have all of yourself if your arm is missing, because your arm is just like not there. That's kind of like the pick. You can, this is like a really morbid example, but you can think of the pick as like the severed arm, as like your body with the severed arm. You can never be fully there because you're missing something. See, I bet you'll never forget what a pick is because I put that graphic imagery into your mind. I do not advocate cutting off limbs in this video. Alright, so agent and actor counterplans is another type of counterplan. So this is a subsection of a pick, or a type of pick. So why is that? It's because it just changes the particular it does like all the plan, but it changes who does the plan, right? So they do the app, they just have someone else do it besides what's specified in the plan text. In the case of the aquaculture app, NOAA do it. So usually they fall in three categories. First are international counterplans. So it's like do the plan but have Japan do it, like we talked about in the previous video. The second kind is the executive order counterplan, or the EXO counterplan. So usually we say that when the plan is implemented, quote unquote normal means is the plan is a bill through Congress. So for example, in like the real world, we just assume that if we actually wanted to implement the aquaculture act, it would just be a bill that would go through Congress, which would have to be ratified by the House and Senate, and it would have to get signed by Obama. So this counterplan, instead of having it be a bill, it has it be an executive order, which is just kind of like an executive mandate that something is done. Another example is the military counterplan. So instead of having NOAA do it, or the actor that's specified in the plan text, have a branch of the military, such as the Navy, do it. This would be a great counterplan against an app that increases icebreakers, for example, because icebreakers are so intimately tied to military, which you know if you watch the topicality lecture. Alright, and finally, process counterplans. And this is a subsection of agent and actor counterplans. So process counterplans change the process of the app. So we usually assume the process of the app is a bill that gets passed through Congress, and which we call normal means, like I just discussed. But instead of having the app be a bill through Congress, the counterplan has a different strategy of implementation. So an example, one of my favorite types of counterplans is the NEPA EIS counterplan. And that says that The counterplan that is that before being implemented, the AF should undergo an environmental impact statement, or an EIS, that is an evaluation of how environmentally friendly the AF is, okay? So why is that beneficial? Well, it results in the AF being created in the most environmentally friendly way possible, right? So this is my favorite type of counterplan, and it's very specific to kind of the individual process. So what I'd highly recommend doing with process counterplans and agent counterplans both is just kind of looking at the literature and looking at the files, and that'll give you a good understanding of kind of how they work. Alright, so here are some examples. What type of counterplan were the three examples? The states counterplan, the privatization counterplan, and the Japan counterplan. Well, I think we can say that they were all actor counterplans, right? So, states counterplan is a plan-inclusive counterplan, or a PIC, and it's an agent counterplan. The privatization counterplan is a plan-inclusive counterplan, also an agent counterplan. And the Japan counterplan is also a plan-inclusive counterplan, and it's an international actor counterplan. So I thought this meme was pretty funny. It's this guy who says, "Hello ladies, your counterplan tax demanded an international actor." Well, like we say, an international actor, we're not talking about someone who acts in movies. We're talking about some branch of government that can implement the plan. Or like a government as a whole. Alright, so where are we going from here? Well, this is a great start. Just understanding what a counterplan is and what types of counterplans you can hear is a huge step in the right direction. So what I would do is take a look at the videos about debating the counterplan, the AF and neg, which we'll cover later in this video, as well as conditionality, which will be coming soon. Also, look at and read through some actual counterplans, or watch a counterplan debate on YouTube. This will help tremendously, and good luck, because counterplans are the best arguments absolutely ever. So next, let's talk about how we debate counterplans on the negative. So here's the 1NC. We're gonna go speech by speech, right? So the 1NC should take less than 1 to 2 minutes to read, and it should include the 3 parts of the counterplan, right? Of course, we should include the counterplan text. It should include 1 to 2 pieces of solvency evidence. Usually embedded in the solvency evidence are also reasons why the counterplan doesn't link to the net benefit. But sometimes you have to read a piece of net benefit evidence. So if the solvency evidence does not make the net benefit claim, then you should read a card here that says why the counterplan doesn't link to the disad that is a net benefit. Or if there's an internal net benefit to the counterplan, then you should read that here. So sometimes you'll have a net benefit that instead of being an external disad that you read off case, it's just as part of the counterplan. It's like a subsection of the counterplan, and then you can just read that on the counterplan. So for example, if you think back to the last video, the first video about counterplans, the Asian coalition DA that was associated with the Japan counterplan, instead of that being like a separate DA, you'd probably read that as part of the counterplan in the 1NC. So you'd have 3 things. You'd have the counterplan text, the solvency evidence about why Japan can solve, and then you'd have those cards, or 1 card that says that Asian coalition net benefit. Alright, so in the 2NC, so usually pretty much everyone extends a counterplan in the 2NC. Very few people extend counterplans in the 1NR. And it usually should take between 3 to 5 minutes. It takes me 5 minutes to extend the counterplan. So our goal, in order of importance but non-speech order, is to first answer all 2AC arguments, especially the permutation. Second is to read 3 new reasons why the counterplan solves case. And then third is to read some sweet theory arguments, okay? So this is not the order of your speech. We're going to talk about that soon. But make sure that you do all of these things when you extend a counterplan in the 2NC. Okay, so counterplan parts in the 2NC. So first you're going to have a solvency overview. So that's where you explain what the counterplan does, and then you read 2 to 3 cards with new warrants about how the counterplan solves case. The second thing you should do is extend any tricks from the 1NC. So if you have, it's like very counterplan specific, but if you have something that like is a really tricky part of the counterplan, then you should definitely extend it right after the solvency overview. Next, you should do the line by line on the 2AC answers. So you should have blocks ready to do this. And then you should definitely read your net benefit cards on the permutation debate. So when you get down to the part where the AF made the permutation, then that's where you read cards about how the counterplan doesn't link to the net benefit, but the AF does. So why would you want to read those arguments on the permutation? Well, being questioned. Well, you'd want to read it on the permutation because the net benefit is the reason why doing both is a bad idea. So the permutation, let's just think about this conceptually, is almost always doing the AF and doing the counterplan. So if you do the AF and the counterplan, the reason why that's a bad idea, the reason why we have the net benefit, the reason why it makes the counterplan competitive is because there's a reason why doing them both at the same time is bad. That is the net benefit, right? So that's why you want to read your net benefit cards when you're answering the permutation e.g., aka the AF argument that says that you can do both. Alright, so how do you kick out of a counterplan? Well, let me tell you, it's way easier than kicking out of disads. All you have to say is the following. The counterplan doesn't solve, and the perm is just a test of competition, not going for it, not going for it, referring to the counterplan. So like not going for the EXO counterplan, not going for the Japan counterplan. That's all you have to say. And then you move on. Okay, so just like memorize this phrase, and every time you want to kick out of a counterplan, just say this phrase. The counterplan doesn't solve, and the perm is just a test of competition, not going for it. Okay, so why say the perm is just a test of competition? Well, it prevents the AF from doing this really tricky move called advocating the perm. It prevents the AF from kicking out of their plan. They kick out of their plan, and then just going for the perm in the 2AR instead. So, for example, instead of them going for just aquaculture, the USFG doing aquaculture is a good idea, hypothetically, they could go for, we think that doing the privatization counterplan and aquaculture, having the private sector and the federal government doing it together, is the best idea, and that's how we're going to describe our AF in the 2AR. If you say the perm is just a test of competition and it prevents the AF from being able to describe the permutation as their AF in the 2AR. If you don't understand that, that's totally okay. It's a pretty complicated topic, but as you debate the counterplan more and as you learn more about debate, then you'll learn more about advocating the perm. So, as I said, advocating the perm is much more complicated, and I'm not going to discuss it more in depth here, but you should talk to your coach or shoot me an email if you have more questions about it. So, just finishing up for your viewing pleasure, since you finished watching this entire video, here's a picture I took of the harbor in my hometown. There it is, Charlevoix, Michigan. Well, that's kind of my hometown, and I thought it was really beautiful. So yeah, great. Thanks for watching this video. And the next video is going to be about AF answers to the counterplan. So hopefully you'll join us, and I hope this was educational.